the Toyota Camry TRD. I've already done a video on the fully optioned XSE model where I talked about all the benefits and the negatives. And most of that's going to carry over here. But the TRD, what Toyota's trying to do is add this trim level to invigorate and give the Camry further personality that it already has with this current generation. I didn't think it needed anymore, but clearly they thought it did, and people are buying it. And they're buying it for a few reasons. But before I get into all the mechanical things, I have to say most of the things that they've done here are appearance related. They've stripped a lot of the more expensive features off to give you a $31,000 price tag, and you get a V6. So in terms of the interior space, let's talk about it. To me, what this feels like is a lot of what the FRS or GT86 or 86 has going on in the interior. It's reminiscent from the low glare dashboard and the low glare rubber or vinyl materials on the upper parts of the car. The red stitching, the way that it feels in many places is trying to give you that element of simplicity or more of that sports car feel. Traditional analog gauges, even though technically they're not analog behind the scenes. All the switch gear, all the input points are very, very toned down. So if you're looking for something that is more back to basics, old school Toyota, a lot of this is here. Now let me roll up this glass for some privacy. And I'm gonna say this interior and car as a whole is for a very specific demographic or market segment. Everything is just what you've expected in cars for the past 30 years. HVAC controls are mechanical. Your tuning and volume knob have good feel to them. The only real negative here, and this is just like the XSE, is this giant slab of black glossy plastic all over the center stack. If you've ever owned a car with this stuff, you know, 1, it scratches easy, 2, it always is dirty, and 3, there's always fingerprints on it when you go mash your dirty hands on it. The infotainment is dumbed down here. It's the smaller screen and it looks funny, specifically when you see everybody trying to put 50-inch screens in their car. So this looks a little bit awkward because there's so much bezel around here, but they make up for it with all the geometry in the dash, the way things are designed. You have a mechanical shift lever with the TRD logo on it. All the knobs around it are physical. You have easy access to USB ports, your charging ports, your storage is pretty good in here. It's a large car, don't forget. Now let's talk about the TRD stuff very briefly. As I said, it's got red cross stitching. It has these soft tech seats, which is just pleather and cloth. You have red seat belts to make you feel like you're in a real sporty car. And, you know, there's other touches like floor mats, but mostly, again, this is an appearance package. I'm going to run this into the ground, which I won't. Let's head into the shop and talk about some of the mechanical changes. This is the second time I am underneath the new Toyota Camry based on the TNGA-K platform. And the original Camry, I went over all the details underneath, so if you want to know more, watch that. But this, we're going to cover the TRD specific changes to this car.
It's a real honey of an automobile. In Japan, the turd is known as the Toyota Racing Development Team. They put millions, if not billions of dollars of development into this Camry.
No, they didn't. But what we're going to try to do is level the expectations about what this is and what it is not. So tell me about what they changed.
So they lowered it by 0.6 inches. It has specific turd sway bars, springs, and shocks. They only come on this Camry. You can't buy them as accessories. The front sway bar is 44% stiffer. The rear sway bar is 67% stiffer. It has larger brakes in the front, going from a 12-inch on the XSE to a 12.9. You have dual piston front calipers and a retuned brake pedal feel. You also have wider wheels that come on summer tires. They are 8.5 inches versus 8, and they're also lighter by 3 pounds in each corner. So not only do you have more mechanical grip, you have less unsprung weight, so it leads to better turn-in.
Yeah, and you make all these changes. The other thing to note is it's on Bridgestone Potenza summer tires, and you will notice, first thing I noticed when I got in is the road noise that's generated from them. These will not last like your traditional all-season tires.
If you want a tire to last 200,000 miles, you can forget about it.
Yeah, so it's one of those things you have to know about this. The second thing is brake pedal feel, because it's been amped up with the dual piston caliper. They want a set more solid brake pedal feel. It's a little bit more touchy. It's not like, is easy to use. So if you're looking, again, for a more comfortable braking experience, that's not this car. And then lastly, because of the suspension changes, sway bars, the damper tuning, there's more rebound that they've added. So when you get on the road, you feel a little bit more bounciness from the body. And I say bounciness just to describe it.
It's not unbearable.
It's not unbearable. It's still on the softer side. It's totally usable. But again, everything's been sharpened here. They put the structural braces that have the TRD logos across the whole thing. They wanted to just tighten everything up to give it a better driving experience. But this is far, far, far and away from a performance car.
No, they try to market this as a track day vehicle, and it's not. Though you're forgetting one real important piece of this automobile.
Yes, because they've lowered it so much, and the side skirts that are on here, it's really hard to get a jack under it. When I put the bend pack low profile arms, I had to move the pads all the way down and then use pucks as risers because I didn't want to scratch up this thing. So if you're constantly underneath this, or if you're in an area with a lot of curbing, be careful.
That's not even what I was talking about. You're talking about practical things.
Oh.
The honey of an exhaust back there.
Oh, yeah,
that's musical.
Exactly. That's what everybody probably cares about with this. It does sound better, but...
Sounds like a Formula One car.
Yeah, Toyota's Formula One car. Now, we just need to get this thing to rev out to 20,000 RPMs. That's a good time to take it on the road and see how it drives. Don't worry, Jack. I'll have you home in time for your swordfish dinner.
Not with that gear change.
Not with the auto upshifts? That's not very enthusiast inspired, is it, Jack?
No, but before we get into the negatives, which I do have a couple, let's talk about what makes the Camry TRD sporty.
All right, let's talk about the good parts. All the good things that you get with a traditional Camry is here. It's quiet, it's comfortable, it's refined, and it still maintains great ride quality. Whatever they've done with the dampers here and the firmness of the sway bars and all that stuff, you barely notice it even on bad pavement. And I think that's the biggest attraction that people are going to be afraid of. Like, ooh, I don't know if I can handle how they've turned up the volume on everything. And it's really very subtle.
Compared to the XSE V6, it's very, very similar. Compared to a 4-cylinder peasant model Camry, it is a lot stiff. Well, not a lot stiffer. It is noticeably stiffer. On the, let's call it enthusiast car spectrum, it's probably a touch softer than a base WRX.
Yeah, I think it's even softer than that. Like, if here is like a track focus car and here's like ultra plush luxury car, it's probably more on the softer side than it is even towards the middle. And I think if you're an enthusiast looking for a sports sedan, no. If you're somebody that's never been in a sports car, this is going to feel tremendous to you. And it really is. And it's completely practical and usable every day. There's basically no trade-offs of having this unless you can think of one.
No, from a Camry buyer's perspective, if you're John Camry and you're going to buy a Toyota product, you want that safe, reliable V6 that sounds not as good as the V6 in a Honda compared to the Pilot we had recently. Does not sound anywhere as good as the Hondas, but it is so smooth.
Yeah, this is one of the most smooth, if not the smoothest V6 that you're going to get for under maybe like 60,000, 50,000.
And in a segment where there are no 6-cylinders anymore.
Yes, that's the big draw. So let's touch on that. Any Camry that you get with a V6, it's pretty much the lone goose at this time. And that alone is a selling point. The second part is you're getting this for $31,000 and the V6 is super reliable. It's got more than enough horsepower.
The exhaust to me is a bit of a mixed bag. It sounds all right, but, and here's my first negative, The transmission gear hunts a ton, and it auto upshifts. So when you're puttering around and you're lugging the motor, the exhaust has this tendency to drone a little bit. And it's not offensive. It's not, 1990s Honda Civic with a fart can, but you always do hear it.
No, you always hear it, definitely. It's just, again, it's subtleties here. This is what they were trying to do. They're trying to sharpen things up. Nothing stands out here that's grating in any single way. And to me, that's what's great about this for the traditional Camry buyer. Now, it's time to talk about kind of from a performance perspective where this falls short, where I think they could make some improvements. So let's get right into it. I'm manual mode, stability and traction control are off, and I'm going to launch it. Okay. It's a one-wheel peel machine, which means it's got an open diff.
Yeah.
And, you can put summer tires on here, you can put the better suspension and all of that, but you can't make up for the fact that it definitely needs a limited slip differential to take it to the next level. That would be a low-cost option in volume to put a Torsen in the front. And you've made all these changes to suspension and the way they've tuned it, putting summer tires on there, and you've completely obliterated all that as soon as you turn the steering wheel and push on the gas. This thing just wants to light up its tires all the time, and even when you have traction stability control off,
it's not really off in Toyota fashion.
Correct. So this leans far too much on the stability control system to keep the traction in check, and to me that kills it.
You do have a lot of mechanical grip though, to be fair, because of the summer tires.
Yeah, but it's not enough, man. I mean, and most people are going to take these off and they're going to put a traditional all-season
tire. Yeah, that'll be terrible.
And as soon as you put it on, it's going to be even way worse. So if you're going to do it, go all the way. And putting a limited slip really wouldn't do anything for drivability except make it better. I know that they probably didn't think a lot of people were going to buy this, and that's not the case. It's a huge take rate for a Camry of this type. So that could be a potential improvement. And the biggest negative aside from that is they've made no changes to engine tuning or transmission tuning for the TRD version. And I think that's another lost opportunity, because when you see like their Lexus F Sport products with the same or similar motor, they allow you the ability to hold revs. The gearing is better. It's a lot more engaging to manually control shifting. And what you get here is you want to get this thing going because the motor's so good, but second gear is so tall on this car. I'm just going to take off one more time so you can just have a listen to it. It literally drops from almost 7,000 RPMs to 3,000 RPMs
It's
into
a huge
second gear.
letdown.
And that's where this feels like it's being held back. And I said this when I did my Camry review. It almost forces you to go up to the Lexus products because they're stripping so much off the table here. But the main thing is this is not a sports car. It's not a track car or anything like that. They're adding the appearance package on to give you the personality, and if that's what you're looking for and you don't care about all these things we talked about, you're going to love this.
But as a counterpoint to what you've just said, the marketing for this vehicle is ridiculous. We took it to all these different racetracks. It's track day ready. The brakes are going to handle 400 miles an hour down the back straight. It is not that car. It should not be marketed that way. It is a Camry with some performance parts on it, and that's it.
I don't disagree with you, and again,
I don't mean that bad.
I don't disagree with you, and I think that's our job is doing this type of stuff, is to be like, this is what it is, this is what it's not, and overall, I think for the price, right? Let's get into that again. If this was $45,000, we'd be having a different conversation, but because it's 31, you probably get it a little bit less. I am okay with the deficiencies here.
It's superb, and it probably has the most personality in the mid-size family sedan segment, in my opinion.
And with that said, let's get into the final thoughts and talk about the pros and cons of the Camry TRD. Final thoughts on the Camry TRD. Now, this is a vehicle that you have to approach with a different perspective. If you just paid attention to their marketing, you'd think it's a lot more than it is. And what they've done here is they took all the good elements of the Camry, something that's completely usable, practical, and reliable, the things that people love about it. And they've added a little bit more flair. And they've gone to the sporty side, and you could tell in engineering and just based on the stuff I read, they knew exactly that line they couldn't cross. So the exhaust is a little bit louder. The suspension is a little bit firmer. The tires that they chose are sticky, but they don't have an insanely stiff sidewall where you blast a pavement imperfection and you feel it throughout your body. All of this stuff is tuned carefully to deliver just a little bit more fun from a front wheel drive sport sedan, whatever that's supposed to mean. And I think what they set out to do, they accomplished. Now, the negative parts of it are, if you're going to market it as an enthusiast product or something that an enthusiast would like, you need to kind of plug in the holes where they're missing out on. And I talked about this already. Transmission performance needs to be retuned. Gearing needs to be changed. It needs a limited slip if you're going to keep a V6 and you're going to do what they're trying to do here. I feel like they're selling enough of these to warrant maybe a subtle change, and it would just transform it completely and without hurting what they're really trying to do. And I know it's a cost issue. It always is. I enjoy driving this car, and I enjoy driving it from the perspective I know that most people can afford it. At $31,000 or $30,000, it's way below the average transaction price of a new car, which has shot up to like $36,000 or $37,000. So it's nice to see them putting the money into something that people can actually buy, and you're not gonna be totally bent over. The residual values are good here. You know it's not gonna break, hopefully, and that's where I liked it. Now, little things like the base audio system that we tested is pretty much average or better than average for a base audio system. Again, there's little things they've had to take out of here to get the price down, and I think that's where it's gonna maybe affect certain buyers because they're gonna want more tech, they're gonna want all this stuff, and it doesn't have all that to accommodate the fact it just looks a lot cooler. It's got a lot more personality, and again, that's what the Camry TRD is about. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.